from the retailer's point of view, when somebody searches for washing powder on an e-com site, you're probably going to sell washing powders. And you don't really mind which one that is. Some of the margins are higher on some, but there's really, it's not much in that. But if you're Unilever or Procter & Gamble, you do care. Unless you're on that, that first row of the grid, you might as well not be there. So then the issue is, well, how do I get on the first row of the grid? Well, one obvious way is to sponsor. Even the big CPG advertisers, and many of them just don't understand this.
Hello and welcome to Retail Media Cam,
the podcast that gets you a backstage pass to what's really going on in the retail media industry.
Hosted by James Taylor, CEO and founder of Particular Audience.
In each episode, we'll explore the strategies and emerging technologies shaping the future of retail media.
And here's the best part. You'll hear it all straight from the source. Recorded live at the world's leading retail conferences, from NRF to grocery shop.
We'll tap into the energy of the show floor, where the biggest names and brightest minds in retail come together.
Think influencers, analysts, and the top executives and innovative founders who are pushing the boundaries of what's possible in retail media.
We'll capture that excitement and bring it straight to your headphones.
On this podcast, you'll get exclusive interviews with industry luminaries and thought leaders,
insights on launching and scaling retail media networks, what works, what doesn't, and the biggest pitfalls to avoid.
behind-the-scenes access to the latest AI-driven technologies transforming the space.
Deep dive into why there is an industry-wide shift toward AI, automation, and hyper-personalized experiences with actionable insights you can take back to your business. Brought to you by Particular Audience, the AI-first retail media platform. Retail Media Cam helps you stay ahead in this fast-moving industry. If you want to adapt, lead, and win in retail media, this is the podcast for you. So let's dive in.
Cool. Okay. Great. All right. Ready? Steve, great to have you on. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
For joining.
Yeah.
So Steve, you've been in the market a long time. You were telling me that you did your first retail media campaign 40 years ago.
I'm obviously a bit up than I look. Yeah, no, I had 10 years with Procter & Gamble, and we were obviously big buyers of what wasn't called retail media back in the day, but that's basically
What did you call it?
We called it trade marketing, I think, in those days. It was a long time ago. So, but I was working with retailers, and we were looking to build our presence in store, and, we saw trade marketing become shopper marketing, and then it evolved into retail media.
And is it true that even the positioning on a shelf and the height on a shelf and the eye level and everything fed into that? That was important stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think we understood, really well that to drive growth, you have to have physical presence and you have to have mental availability. And we were in the sales department, and so our key task was around distribution and space in store and getting the pricing right and promoting and all of those good things, working closely with retail partners to achieve that.
And 40 years ago, how must be a nightmare validating that what you thought was going on in every store was going on in every store?
A little bit, yeah. So, interestingly, what's changed a lot is that in those days, the retailers, certainly in the UK, were very receptive to big suppliers like Procter & Gamble bringing to the table, packages, promotions that they would execute. And what's changed over the time is that retailers have become much more self-confident, much more professional. And so they're now offering their media to the brands and, allowing the brands just simply to buy rather than to worry about taking their own sort of collateral into stores.
So two questions on this. Are retailers now good media sellers?
Some better than others, and but they're learning quickly. It's growing fast. They're in a great space if you think about it, because back to what I was saying earlier about how brands grow, and there's a wonderful book from Byron Sharp on that. There are two things that really drive growth. So one is, how are you presented to the shopper? What is your physical availability? What's your distribution? Are you there when the customer searches? And then are you in their minds? Are you part of their mental availability? Do they recall you? Have you got good awareness? Those are the two things that drive growth. And those two things have to work together. And of course, where they come together is in shops, in retail, and yeah, aided a little bit by technology, as retailers have realized that they've got these huge audiences that they can reach, communicate to. They can do that very, very personalized through loyalty programs, and then they can measure it very, very effectively too. So, I mean, they're in a very, very good position, and they are definitely getting better at becoming media sellers.
It's a new muscle, and they're building it. But the second question is, trade still exists, retail media exists. I've seen some retailers that really are able to sort of separate the two. And I've seen some retailers where ultimately the C-suite doesn't care where the margin's coming from. And that can lead to some retail media failure. I think the retail media business is sort of given the room to grow, where trade continues to sort of have that kind of legacy control over supplier funding. How have you seen it done well? And what's the best approach from an operational standpoint?
Well, actually, I mean, different retailers classify retail media differently. Some would say, look, any, and we would, like to go with the definition that any asset that is owned or influenced by the retailer is retail media. So it doesn't really matter what budget it comes out of. It could come out of the trade or the shopper marketing budget, or it could come from an ad agency. So it's all retail media if you think about it. So I don't think it's really, we've no need to really worry which budget you take it from.
Why are we branding it retail media? Why did we change it? And is there an upside? Is it the new frontier of digital marketing?
I don't know if anybody quite knows where the name comes from. If you do a search on Google Trends, you see this sort of hockey stick in about 2022, I think it was. And I had to actually try to sort of get to the bottom of what drove that. I think it's probably Amazon.
Unlocking media budget.
When they declared that they were making, I think it was 20 billion, everyone went, gosh, that's a really big sum of money. I think that was a trigger point for many, many retailers to say, well, we really have to, up our game on this and get into it. And then somehow that term has taken hold, and it's grown and grown ever since, as you know.
To me, it seems that trade negotiations, trade funding, I intentionally not saying trade marketing because it goes broader than just that. You have your rebates, you have your volume benefits for certain sales targets hit, but there's many sort of currencies in which suppliers and retailers.
That's true, but then media works in the same way. You get all sorts of media bundle deals in traditional media, and you always have. I mean, fundamentally, what you've got is the brand adverts of the suppliers. They need to fix their physical distribution. That's their biggest priority, is getting their brands listed and then presented on shelves optimally, and also presented to the consumer through e-com optimally. That's the big task. And all sorts of processes through which they do that, and then they will often pay to achieve it too. But then they've also got to influence what's going on in people's minds, and that's where the advertising comes in. And
the legacy trade has sort of almost got a bit of a reputation of being less transparent, more opaque in terms of the outcomes, and whereas retail media is sort of this promised land I see of it's transparent. I believe the Nestle marketing chief was saying, that the trade dollars are going to be treated with the same rigor that they apply to digital marketing budgets today. And I feel like the technology in retail media is sort of enabling that.
I think what one thing that has happened is there's been a professionalization of shopper trade, call it what you want now, retail media, and measurement has been a big thing. And I think a lot of retailers are realizing that if you want to be a serious media seller, then you have to make sure that what you sell is executed and measured. And that perhaps hasn't always been the case. And but there is definitely a new professionalization, I think, in the industry now. It's
sort of a chasm between what trade was and what media is.
Yeah, I mean, it's still fundamentally the same thing, but I think, I would use the word it's professionalized. 40, 60, 80 years ago, brands still wanted to be present big time in as many shops as they could, and they would do what they needed to do to achieve that. And that might have been through margin, it might have been through payments. It doesn't really matter. It was perhaps a little less professional then, but it's fundamentally the same thing.
The practice has grown up. Does that, in your view, unlock more dollars than were there before, or is it just the new standard?
Maybe. I think there's a limit to how much any brand is going to spend with a retailer, because it's kind of constrained by the size of their business. But if the retailer can grow the brand, then the brand will keep spending. That's the big thing. If everything is focused on growth, then brands will not worry which budget is funding the growth, providing they're generating growth. So I think that's really a big thing.
And then, so in your career, 40 years ago, first retail media campaign, where have you been since?
Well, I grew up in, from consumer goods, 10 years Procter & Gamble. I was a general manager at PepsiCo and at Barilla, the Italian food company, but about just over 20.
Spaghetti.
Indeed. About 20 years ago, I joined dunnhumby, and my task was to monetize the club card database, which we
So dunnhumby was spawned by Tesco.
Well, it was independent of Tesco, but its claim to fame was that it helped Tesco leverage the data from club card, which had a great impact on Tesco and obviously a great impact on dunnhumby. And the remit was to monetize the data, but actually what I realized and had to convince the owners of, and had to convince Tesco, was that we had a media business, that brands would spend so much to find things out, but they would spend an awful lot more to make things happen. And Tesco, through their club card, they had 20 odd million customers that they could reach personally. We could print coupons at till, we could send things through the post. There's a lot of things that we could do, and we persuaded Tesco that we should be allowed to sell that, which they didn't immediately agree with because they saw us as a kind of a data company. But we succeeded with that, and then we merged it with their traditional kind of ambient retail media business, which included all sorts of things, posters outside the store, magazines, even petrol pump nozzle ads, and then digital back in the day was really banner ads on the website. But we
with any targeting at all, or just get it up there?
Just get it up there, basically. Yeah, get it up there. And so we packaged all of that up, and that was a retail media network. And of course we had the amazing ability to measure that through the data that we had. And that became really the template for much of the industry, because we took that model to America with Kroger. And
That's a dunnhumby work with Kroger.
Yeah, we had a joint venture. It was called dunnhumby USA, and then Kroger bought the JV out, and it's now called 8451, and Kroger Precision Media all have come off that, and that model has been the template for many retailers around the world, and it's still playing out.
Interesting. Okay, so you've sort of come from a place, or we've come from a place where you might have a lot of loyalty data. There's a whole bunch of information that we know about the loyalty customers. There's obviously a big unauthenticated shopper base as well that's far less easy to target if you don't have that loyalty data. Segment-based targeting has been prevalent in media for as long as I've been alive, because it makes sense. If you don't want a mass market message, you want to target a specific group. Invariably, there are people in a segment that may not resonate with the message being given to that segment. And in fact, those people might resonate with the message given to a different segment. One obvious example is when you're shopping on behalf of something. If I'm shopping to buy my mother a gift, my context and my intent is changing. Where do you see today technology being to enable this sort of almost more intelligent, this evolution from just segments?
Gosh, well, I mean, I think it really probably was loyalty card data that really enabled um, segment-based, leading to personalized marketing. I think there is a slight danger that personalization gets overplayed a little bit. People don't necessarily overly worry about what's shown to them as long as it's broadly relevant. And I think people perhaps over worry a little bit about that. The slight danger with personalization is you end up marketing to your existing customers too much.
Yeah.
And to grow, you have to acquire new ones. So having said that, clearly if you're selling nappies or you're selling pet food, there's clearly a certain audience that you want to reach and a whole lot of others that you really are going to probably waste most of your money on if they haven't got a pet or if they haven't got a baby. So, there is a big role for that. And technology has really enabled that, both through loyalty programs and moving into, the world that you know very well of online marketing and sponsored product ads especially.
Yeah. And you left dunnhumby. And what happened since, and what are you up to now?
Yeah, so I went to Germany and worked with a company called Loyalty Partner, who own PAYBACK, which is Europe's biggest coalition loyalty program, iconic brand in Germany, and a number of.
What is a coalition loyalty mean?
So that's where the brand PAYBACK in that case is used in a number of retailers, supermarkets, DIY, travel, and the customers who are members of that program can earn rewards and points, accrue cash through shopping in those businesses. And the loyalty operator, PAYBACK, owns the brand and provides the loyalty infrastructure and gets paid for doing that. And it's a really, really nice business. In the UK, you have Nectar, which is it's changed a little bit now that it's owned by Sainsbury's, but
it's a coalition because it's coalition one retailer.
Exactly, as opposed to say a single brand, which is where the loyalty program is part of one retailer only, and you can't use it outside of that retailer.
And the value there to the advertiser is that there's just more things to go on. There's more information. There are privacy concerns for the customer being thrown into this pool of.
Well, the big advantage of a coalition is that you are, as a member of the coalition, you are getting a pool of customers who are your prospects, who you can drive growth from. Whereas with the loyalty program, the people who are going to join that are almost certainly going to be your best customers anyway.
Right.
So the really big advantage is you'll be
loyal ones.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's, that can provide you with a lot of benefits, but it won't help you to grow.
Yeah.
And, what you need to grow is to acquire new customers. And really that's where a coalition program can play quite a strong role. So as a PAYBACK, and then within PAYBACK, we had a business, emnos, which was a kind of a dunnhumby Mark II. And we worked with many of the retailers in Europe that were off limits to dunnhumby because of their relationship with Tesco. And our big clients were Carrefour in France and Spain and Metro Group in Germany. We worked with Boots in the UK. We acquired a business in the UK to grow. We worked with Walgreens in the US, Woolworths in Australia. So, very nice business, very similar to dunnhumby. And then post emnos, I worked with BCG, which was very, very good, and their retail and loyalty and data practice. And then I started my own company about, just over 10 years ago. And we now make retail media our thing, and we help retailers either to get started and to build a retail media network, or if they've got one already, to make it bigger and better.
Great. And I don't know if you're allowed to talk about who they are or not, so I'll just assume not, and you can say otherwise. What are the hot areas right now? Like, what is everyone talking about? What are the focus areas?
Well, if they haven't got started, it's about how do we get started, and there's a lot to think about. There's who should this report to? How should it fit within our marketing or our retailing strategy? What people are we going to need? What technology are we going to need? How much is all that going to cost? How will we know that we're going to get a return? How will that return be incremental to, what we're doing perhaps already? And then if you have started, it's about, well, many of the same questions, but how do you make that bigger and better? How do you make it more profitable? How do you evolve from, we talked about the brand budgets before, which probably are a little bit capped according to the size of the supplier, but how do you capture a bigger share of that supplier's broader ad business? I think that's really the big area now for the more mature businesses, is how do we take share from Google, from Facebook, from other online platforms? How do we take share from out of home? How do we take share from TV? These really, I think, are the big.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? You sort of think about, the bottoms up approach of, well, I get this much traffic to this category in pet food, and what are the viable budgets here? But then, if Mars Pet Care is spending 30 million on television ads, how do we expand that?
Yeah. And I think this is where it's getting really, really exciting, because the retailer has got a lot going for it. It's able to say, we have, sometimes tens of millions of customers coming through our doors and onto our websites, often every day. We know a lot about them. We can reach them in a very personalized way. We can measure what happens, and we obviously can influence physical presence, and we can influence mental availability through advertising. We can make traditional media much more effective, because we can link our loyalty data to ITV and to Sky and to other streaming and broadcast channels.
With streaming authenticated users now on these streaming TV.
Yeah, so the advertiser is able to say, look, I want to show these ads to these types of people. Of course, the big issue that the TV companies and the advertisers always have had is, we've no real idea whether that's working or not, other than a very sort of high level. And because we don't know what people are buying. The supermarkets do know what people are buying, but of course they didn't know what ads they were seeing. But by joining those two things together, you've got a very interesting...
The loyalty program is actually a critical component to attribution for all of these offsites and CTV and these concepts.
Yeah, it absolutely can be. Yeah, and it also can help you when there's how you measure media is a massive topic. How you measure retail media is an even bigger topic, because you've got all the same questions with traditional media, but a lot more data with it to do it. And what we try and help people sort of focus on is the thing that really, really matters, which is acquiring new customers. And that's the key thing. And
incrementality.
Retailers can see that for their shopper base. And there are ways in which we can help brands to understand whether that's a new to that retailer or new to the brand. That's really the key thing we would argue is keep your focus on acquiring new customers.
And where does a loyalty program sort of cap out in retail media? Unauthenticated users is one example, right? And how can this be solved? It's a loaded question, obviously, within the search and recommendation and the implicit intent key.
Yeah, I mean, not every shopper is going to be in the loyalty program, and within the loyalty program, you've got those people who are going to be shopping with high frequency and spending a lot, and then a much longer tail of occasional shoppers. And loyalty programs are very strong on the first group and much less strong on the others. So,
do you think the sale that P&G might get from me as an unauthenticated user, right? You can't prove that I was new to brand. Does that sale still matter? Does that post-click attribution for this guest visitor matter still?
P&G, like all brands, they want growth, and what they will measure is their share within a retailer. And they can't really do a great deal to influence the retailer's overall performance. But within the retailer, they can influence that a lot. And there's
Measures like share of basket or share of voice still matter.
share of customers. So the penetration and share within that retailer is really the big measure for a brand. And then what will drive that is the new customers that they're acquiring. Now that's much harder for them to measure because they're not able to see, unless by the retailer, the individual customer transaction. So the loyalty card can really help with understanding that whether the customers are shopping for the first time or.
And then on-site is quite unique in its ability to tie a transaction to an anonymized ID, but still track it and know there's value.
I think sponsored products are still. I mean, they were the thing that Amazon pioneered. Yeah, really. And you could say if they stole from Google and Facebook, but really they linked that to the purchases. It's been the thing that's really driven a lot of growth for a lot of retailers, but it's nowhere near maxed out. It's got massive potential. And from my recent experience, not many brands properly understand it.
Understand the gap between Amazon and the rest of retail, or
no, the benefits of sponsored product, how they work, and that the thing that we're quite passionate about is sponsored product ads drive physical availability as well as mental availability. And what I mean by that is 60% or so of shoppers shop via search. They don't search by brand, they search by subcategory. So
brown sugar,
yeah, toilet roll, yeah, washing powder, soft drinks. If you go to a supermarket and you get a trolley where there's a physical shopping list being left behind, you won't see brands on there. It's very, very rare. Occasionally you will, but you'll see toothpaste, loo roll, washing powder. And that's exactly how customers shop online.
The opportunity to sway into brand.
Well, so from the retailer's point of view, when somebody searches for washing powder on an e-com site, you're probably going to sell washing powders. And you don't really mind which one that is. Some of the margins are higher on some, but there's really, it's not much in that. But if you're Unilever or Procter & Gamble, you do care. It matters to you a lot. Now, there might be 400 or 500 SKUs in a category. And if you're shopping on your phone, which is 60 to 70% of people these days,
tiny screen,
you're going to see 3 or 4 on the first page, and you might scroll through. So essentially, does that make 80 or 90% of those SKUs are off sale? Now, if physical availability is what really, really matters, which it does, then you're only going to be selling to people who've already bought you. If you're not in the first row.
So we actually have. We also power the organic search results for many retailers, everything. And one of the metrics we track is average click position of the products.
Yeah.
And it's sort of positive reinforcement analytics, because very rarely do you see an average click position of 28 or 62. The average click position is typically pretty high, and then all of those long tail items that just aren't making their way into these either popular terms or if you have a higher propensity for one sugar and I have a higher propensity for the other sugar, a machine should know that.
I think brands tend to think still that there's such a thing as a digital shelf, which is a kind of replication of the physical shelf in a store. And not just that you can see everything, but everybody sees the same thing. And I think what they haven't realized is the extent to which, when you search for detergents and I search for detergents, we are not going to get shown the same thing. And so everything is variable. And unless you're on that, that first row of the grid, you might as well not be there. So then the issue is, well, how do I get on the first row of the grid? Well, one obvious way is to sponsor. And it doesn't cost you anything until somebody clicks through and buys you. But at no cost, therefore, you have fixed your physical availability for that brand, for that search occasion.
You're giving yourself a chance.
You give exactly that, and even if you're not clicked on, you're visible at that point in time. Okay. And if you don't do that, you're not. So it's almost like there's nothing to lose. Now, what you might say against that is, well, there would be some people who would have bought me anyway, and then, perhaps I'm paying for it. Yeah, that's possibly true.
We actually track, even on a share of voice basis, cannibalization. So you're positioning in organic placements, and then when you run sponsorships, what happens to your share of voice? Usually there is some cannibalization of your organic share of voice, but the overwhelming uplift is 2, sometimes 3x.
Yeah,
from a good sponsored products campaign.
Yeah, and there's up to my mind, there's almost like nothing to almost. If you think about it, if you could only spend money on one thing, what would it be? Probably sponsored products is the thing because it gets you physical availability.
So measurable,
And
direct,
very measurable,
indisputable.
and if you worry, if you're worrying about, well, I might be paying for people who would have bought me anyway, then you just filter those people out and say, don't show this to people who are my
An existing
highly loyal customers.
a really good use case of the segments to sort of filter out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's honestly, it's even big CPG advertisers, and many of them just don't understand this.
So conceptually speaking, there's a big opportunity,
Massive opportunity.
and then our message is that technologically there's a big opportunity to improve the efficiency and the scope and the performance of sponsored search, but also cross funnel. The sponsored product recommendation and the sponsored cross sell and the sponsored bundle, and there's just so much.
Sponsored favorites, sponsored have you forgotten about.
The cross-category have you forgotten the cart is also just clearly incremental.
Yeah.
Talking of Barilla, I've got all the ingredients to a spaghetti on my basket and I've forgotten, the bolognese, and I've forgotten the spaghetti. Well, that's prime for Barilla.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely.
Have you forgotten? I have, thank you very much. That's even helpful.
Yeah. Clearly.
So absolutely. My wife would kill me if I forgot that spaghetti would just be having bolognese. Yeah, so I think, definitely a big opportunity for on-site stills, and for the retailer, it's the highest margin things.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a great business for a retailer, but very, very important for the brand as well.
Who's doing it well?
Actually, I think Asda are doing on-site really, really well. They're doing large elements of it well. Everybody looks to Amazon.
Huge coverage of search queries.
Complication with Amazon, of course, is really that are they a retailer or really they're just are they a marketplace? I think they're more of a marketplace. Got huge inventory, very high competitive intensity, and you don't always get that in with supermarkets where the ranges are sometimes a bit more curated, high amount of own label. The big issue that a lot of retailers are grappling with is what is the right balance between sponsored and organic,
And what if you had your own brand items?
and how do they optimize that? And I think we like to help retailers try and think towards and move towards is, in a perfect world, there shouldn't be a conflict. Perfect world, you would have every product would be sponsored, and they would be shown organically in the most relevant way for that customer. And there are some constraints currently on the tech to do that. And but I think that's where there's a lot of innovation coming.
Yeah, and I mean, we, in some retailers, will power the entire organic experience, and in some, we will just do the sponsored product stuff. But where the two are happening is almost the magic, because you have, item 1,000 in the search result should never be item 1 just because it's sponsored. This is obviously clearly not that relevant, but relevant enough. So it needs to be proportionately boosted. It's just of the gradient. Whereas I think that the business KPIs go even farther beyond purely conversion optimization and the most relevant product. And retail media, they have overstocked items, they have higher margin items, they have their own brand stuff that they might want to promote. So having one system where this all flows through is really the thesis behind a particular audience. But it's not originally. It's exactly how Amazon and Walmart have started as experts in search and recommendation systems. retail media is just another KPI. Now, for Amazon that has 300,000 coat hangers, the pay-to-play aspect is absolutely a critical feature of the ranking cocktail. But even for a retailer that might have, in a dental care category, a super long list of products as well, the pay-to-play is how you give yourself the chance as a brand. And I think that the first wave of retail media technology, that was just pure sort of rules or keyword targeting, I think there's going to be a massive sort of growth opportunity in how that just integration with the organic search experience works. And that's what we're working on. So that was
Very good.
great. Well, super interesting. A lot is happening in the market. What is your ideal customer profile? Who do you tend to work with? Who should reach out to you? And it sounds as if they're either launching from scratch or if they just want to improve what they're currently doing.
Yeah, I mean, any retailer that hasn't got started on retail media, we'd love to have a chat with. I think retail media does work better where you've got branded advertisers. So that tends to be supermarkets, drugstores, health and beauty are big categories. Consumer electronics. You want ideally some competitive intensity between brands. Yeah, exactly. And then really the bigger the better. And I think the bigger the market that you are in, I think media is still a geographic thing. You've got UK media,
Good concentrators here, decent bundle.
they show the market size matters. So if you're a big retailer in the US, you're gonna make a lot more than if you're a big retailer in the UK. So market size and being a branded retailer, that's who we're looking to work with.
Thank you so much for coming on to the Retail Media Camp.
You're very welcome.
Probably the most knowledge and experience in absolute year terms.
You're like an old bastard.
But no, super awesome to hear everything.
You're welcome.
Great to have you on.
Very good. Cheers. That was okay.
Brought to you by Particular Audience, the AI-first retail media platform. Retail Media Cam helps you stay ahead in this fast-moving industry.